The Daily Raz Show with Jack Wilson.
Okay, we are live. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Daily Raz Show. I'm Jack Wilson. Glad you could join us for the program. I've been wanting to do a show on expatriates, and the reason is because I've known people that have wanted to talk about leaving the country. I mean, with all of everything that's going on here, politically and otherwise. A lot of people have talked about it. Has anyone actually done it? So I thought, well, you know what? This would be something to really talk about. A lot of people don't even know what an expatriate is. And there are expatriates for different countries. I mean, so we're going to be specifically, or I am going to be specifically talking about U.S. expatriates. So, the question is, are expatriates a myth? And the short answer is no. And hey, a lot of people don't even know what an expatriate is. So let's explain what an expatriate is for U.S. citizens. There's many stereotypes surrounding them, but an expatriate is simply someone living outside their native country with roughly about 5.5 million Americans alone are living abroad. And the numbers seem to be increasing. Now, again, we're speaking of Americans, U.S. citizens that are moving out. And again, expatriates can be from any country. And there are expatriate communities all over the world in different countries. But getting back to U.S., almost 200,000 Americans relocated abroad in 2025 alone. So what drives a person or families to leave their country and relocate to another country? Well, they can be driven by several factors. It can be work-related and, the need to work in another country. Their companies take them there. And generally, when companies do that, they have expatriate communities that their employees generally live in. Or, it can be the cost of living has driven them to find another means of providing for themselves or their families. And as the population has become older, maybe their incomes have not kept up with living costs. Moving to another country provides a cost alternative for that. And, in the last decade, crime and the political environment have moved up the list as some of the considerations for persons or families to consider moving out of the country. So why has there been so much talk among friends and family about what it would be like to live in another country? I think a lot of it is because of the internet, the 24/7 news feeds, the many travel programs that are on. I mean, look at Rick Steves and the things that are on PBS. A lot of travel programs promoting other countries and marketing by other countries around the world. I mean, we've all heard stories of people and families leaving the U.S. and settling in some foreign country. And look, some of us may even know people who are living in or have lived in another country. Of course, most of the stories we hear all have a happy and prosperous conclusion. But, the world has changed. The world, for the most part, has been at peace for the better part of 50 years. And most countries have prospered and improved greatly. During the war years, countries around the world suffered losses and destruction to their infrastructure, while the West fortunately did not. I'm speaking of the West, the United States and countries in this hemisphere. However, look, over the decades, those countries have been busy rebuilding, improving their technology, infrastructure, and services. The result is many countries are surpassing the U.S. in a lot of those areas. These changes are not going unnoticed to the aging population in the United States. Other countries are now inviting U.S. citizens and their dollars to come and live in their country. I mean, we see it all the time. Some of the most popular ones are that you can go to Italy and buy a home for $1 or $10 or $100. These are, of course, very small villages, but look, you can do it. But then you may need a couple $100,000 to renovate it. So there's always the caveats to these things. However, those opportunities are there. And the visions most Americans were given and had of backward countries who lagged behind in modern conveniences are no longer true. And, you know, some of that still goes on, where they just want us to believe that we are behind, or rather ahead of other countries in many areas and in technology, et cetera. It's not true necessarily. Look, by many standards, the U.S. ranks, for example, as low as sixth to the rest of other industrialized nations in healthcare alone. So although most people believe the U.S. is highest in quality of life and standard of living, that is not necessarily true, not any longer. Look, while still on the high scale compared to other countries, the U.S. is slipping lower every year, you know, because of contributing factors, including safety, cost of living, declining health care, cost of health care, and declining education. Not necessarily secondary education, but that's a whole other topic where the government's now getting involved in telling colleges what to do. So the aging U.S. population, though, is being hit the hardest because of fixed incomes that have been just devastated from poor investment policies and decisions. While it could have been on their part, or it could have been because of the what's going on in the individual investments, not necessarily S&P 500. But older people just cannot keep up with rising costs, and it's forcing them to make hard decisions. Living cheaper usually means a lower quality of life, and that means a shorter life. So instead of living their later life years enjoying some travel and leisure, many older Americans are forced to sit at home and entertain themselves watching television that is no longer free. You know, look, everybody that is retired, and forced in some ways because of age, they don't have a lot of money in markets and stock markets, investments, and index funds. So they're forced to live on those fixed incomes. For those old enough to think back 40 years, I mean, who can remember any advertising about reverse mortgages? It's an instrument invented to supplement the wealth of middle-income America lost in investments and allow them some form of income. It's no longer available to retirees. I guess the idea of reverse mortgages is a whole other subject, but we could talk about that another time. So, are expatriates a myth? The answer is no. They are real, and the numbers are growing. As more Americans discover they don't need to totally abandon the U.S., but can gently move it aside, they are testing the waters of international living. And many countries are accommodating those who want to give it a try. Other countries have their native language, but almost all speak and understand English. For many countries, English has been a required subject in their schools for years. And most countries who welcome Western visitors have an established expatriate community of U.S. or British citizens. They also have government agencies to assist in answering questions. Real estate companies in foreign countries are very well informed on their current regulations. So today, the most difficult part of an international move is answering your own real desire. Is it really for you? I've known people who have taken the trips and done the first steps in finding out if it's really for them. It's usually a no, not right now. Things have changed in the U.S. Some say it's good and some say it's not so good. Those that say it's not so good seem to hold out hope that it can go back the way it was for them when they had high hopes and expectations. Some who can afford it take a part-time approach to the problem. They find a country that meets their expectations and move there part-time out of the year. It could be 3 months or 6 months. Rents can be very reasonable in many countries compared to what they are in the United States. Point is, there are all kinds of options, and Americans are finding them. The world is getting smaller every day. There are rules, and some countries are more welcoming than others. However, there are many more choices today than that were available a few years ago. Social security, health care, quality of life, investment are all included in a long list of reasons Americans are considering the moving. So is moving to another country for you? Well, that's a big, large question. When you take into consideration family, property, there's a lot to consider in that. However, more and more countries are welcoming U.S. citizens and the dollars. They are interested in the dollars invested in their countries. So, as I said before, the world is getting smaller, and more countries are welcoming. There are some, that they're not interested particularly in the tourist business because they are becoming just so crowded with that. And I'm sure we've all seen that. But there's a difference between moving there and being a tourist. They are interested in the U.S. dollars as investments in their countries. So anyway, I thought I'd bring that up, and I do want to talk more about it, but I've been for so long wanting to bring that on and talk about expatriates and folks moving out of the country. And we'll do some more shows on that. And I'm probably going to follow this up with some of the things that are actually happening right now in the news. It's just pretty wild and crazy. Of course, the war that's going on over in the Middle East, driving the cost of living up even higher for those that are on real fixed incomes. And again, I'm going to say it. Everybody's not in the markets. Everyone doesn't have money in the index funds, which are the safest places to be. But everyone that doesn't have that in there. In particular, if they did at one time and lost it over the course of 20 or 30 years, a lot of folks lost money in those markets. So we do have a lot of people in this country that are on real fixed incomes. That means Social Security and little, if anything else. So those are the people that some are looking to getting out of the country because of the high cost of living. And I'm not going to sell particular countries. If anyone's interested in doing that, then you need to really investigate anyway before you embark on that. But the cost of living in a lot of countries is less than the United States. And health care in many countries does exceed what's in this country. Health care, what the cost of health care in this country, in my opinion, is a crime. And I don't know what the answer to it is. I have my ideas, but we're not going to get into that today. I may do a show on that, being part and parcel of what's going on politically. Anyway, thanks for joining us. I'm going to wrap this, and hope you come back and catch our next show. I'm Jack Wilson. This is Daily Raz Show, and you can follow me on the writing I do on dailyraz.com. Thanks.